EA Interviews, episode 135.
Inspiration, transformation, success stories, and the Imperfect Action Round. 7 days a week. Join Mario Ficini for today's Expert Authority Effect interview.
Presentations, business, storytelling, all of these are important. But do you know how to do it properly? I'm excited to have Angelo Caruso on the show today. He's a great guy. I've been in many of his presentations and have known him for probably going on, what do you think, like a decade now? I think it was like 2009 or 10. It's hard to believe. But he is going to teach you how to present like a pro. If you have any business and you're not speaking, you should. And if you are, you better be leveling up your game. I'm excited to bring him up right after we thank our sponsor. There's money in the metrics. Do you know yours? Pipedrive is the simplest and easiest CRM to close more deals, deepen your relationships, and increase your business profits. Get your free trial today at eainterviews.com/pipedrive. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Angelo Caruso. Michael, how are you feeling today?
Hey, Mario. Feeling pretty good. How are you?
I'm having a great day. Excited for you to share with Expert Authority World. Tell us, how did you get into speaking? Next to death, it's like number 2 of what people fear the most. So why'd you decide to make a career out of it?
Well, I came up through the music business. So we tasted death early on. My brothers and I were on stage all over North America on the college circuit. We opened for acts like Rick Springfield, Corey Hart, Joan Jett. We had a strange gig with Foghat one time. And we got used to being on stage. When the band ended, I had a transitory type of career, job, I should say, in the telecommunications industry. I went from being on stage in a very public environment to working a call center doing 50 outbound calls a day. And I quickly realized that wasn't me. And then when my father died in 1997-ish, I realized that I was going to die one day soon enough. And I should really do what I want to do for a living. And that's when I quit my job and started the speaking business.
Just like that, you woke up and quit? I mean, was there any lead up, or was it really a split decision and you just – that a lot of people would think that's scary. How did you just do it so quick?
Well, certainly it was scary. I'm giving you the shorter version, but in any experience, there's like this teeter-totter, this pain-pleasure thing that's going on. I was in pain in the job. If it was the perfect job, I wouldn't have left, but I was in pain. And when my father passed, it was just he was my second parent to die. And I just realized, life is so short. We really need to do what we're meant to do. And I finally decided to man up and put my big boy pants on and hang my own shingle just to see what could happen. Fortunately, I had been in the music business. I understood a little bit about what it takes to create a calendar. And I had also had a chance to test market my presentations in the speaking business because I was showing up at trade shows doing soft skills like time management and leadership and that sort of thing. And that was the start of it all. Looking back, maybe it was kind of silly for me to do that, but it was a different time. I was younger, and it's easy to look in the rearview mirror and say, yeah, I should have done that. But at the time, it was a risky thing to do. You're right.
How are you feeling now, looking back? Are you glad you did it?
Well, I went to the dentist today. My mouth is a little sore, but other than that, I'm feeling great. Yeah, the feedback has been extraordinary. I've now spoken on 5 continents, 49 of the 50 states. I've got books and audio programs and video programs in people's homes all over the world. I have a crazy successful online Present Like a Pro course where I'm helping other people now learn the business, which I find to be very gratifying. And so life is really good, man. If you think of it like a 4-legged bar stool of social, life, health, occupation, or vocation, and then avocation, I'm on about as solid of a bar stool as you can be on and be drinking at the same time.
Well, I'm happy to hear that, and congrats on your success. You also reminded me I'm going to the dentist in a couple of days myself. But
you're welcome for that.
I'm actually looking forward to it. It's for teeth cleaning, so that way everyone still wants to watch the show.
Yeah.
What have been some of, I'll ask you that in a second. Tell me about some of the things that people can do to improve and present like a pro, because there's a ton of speakers out there, and maybe they're professional, maybe they're not, maybe they're in organizations, maybe they're not. I mean, if for anyone who doesn't know, if you want to speak, you can go speak. There's no degree or anything you need, but there's varying degrees. That's kind of cool. There's varying degrees of how good people are. What do you find most people are doing that wrong that they could be doing better?
Well, wrong is a heavy word, but
what do you think they could do to improve?
Well, I say wrong is a heavy word because they're not actually incorrect when they do that, what I'm about to tell you. But everybody has trouble with this because it's so hard to do, and that is to be natural in front of people. I mean, just think about this. The reason we're not natural is because the central nervous system is under siege. You're either going to get the good kind of stress or the bad kind of stress. So the good kind of stress is you're a professional volleyball player and the ball's coming towards you and you're going to set up the person next to you and you know exactly what to do. It's still a form of stress, but it's the good kind of stress. The bad kind of stress is, oh my God, I'm not really that good of a speaker and there's a bunch of people out here waiting for me to wow them and oh my God, and then they go into all kinds of other unnatural things. But here's the thing. When you're natural, you're authentic. When you're authentic, you're believable. And when you're believable, your call to action will fire. But if there's a breakdown along the way in any of those stations, your CTA, your call to action, becomes diminished and you're screwed. If you were there to sell stuff, you won't sell as much stuff. If you were there to help people, you won't help as many people. If you were there to get laughs, not so much. So when I say it's hard or wrong, when we say it's wrong, it's technically wrong, but fixing it, becoming natural is not, it's the right thing to do, but how do you do that? That's the secret sauce.
Is there an easy way to do it?
No, it's not easy. I guess for some people it's easy, but for most of us it becomes a study, because
what I'm hearing is practice.
Yeah, but what do you practice? Being natural. You see the mind trouble there. So one of the things you can practice are called mechanics, and you know this because I've seen you speak at enough events, and you have this. But the idea of practicing the correct speaking mechanics, which would get you in the right place. I'll give you an easy example of that. When I'm speaking to you now, I'm sending you two types of signals. I'm sending you verbal signals and I'm sending you nonverbal signals. So verbal is what comes out of my mouth, but nonverbal is the point to my mouth, the sense of confidence, or how I present it to you verbally or visually, I should say. And there's an old saying that people believe what you do over what you say. So the nonverbal signals cannot be underemphasized. Well, what happens when your verbal signals don't match your nonverbals? You have something called discontinuity, and then you're a mess. And so one of the things I go to work on with my students right away is this continuity between what they say and what they do. Everybody practices what to say in a speech, but very few people practice what to do. True?
I agree.
I mean, we've got our speech or our talking points and we practice the hell out of it. But when do you move? When do you gesture? What expression do you have on your face at certain junctures of that speech? I mean, all that stuff should be in the speech, almost like a talking point. And that's how you get continuity. Very few people take the time to do that.
Interesting. So you definitely piqued my interest with this. So when you're taking them through your training, are there some elementary building blocks, for example, stance, leg width, how you're standing, where your shoulders are, chin up, smiling? Are there basic things you start with?
Yeah, I think a good thing to start with is something called countenance. We heard Ben Franklin talk about it a lot. He wrote a lot about it a lot. the great Miles Davis, the trumpet player, called it carriage. It's just how you walk into a room. It's how you step onto the speaker platform. We call it a platform because in many cases when we're speaking, we don't actually have a stage. So it's that area of the room that you start to make your own. But I think it starts way before that, Mario. I think it starts with how you walk into the room because people are looking at you all the time. It's funny. We talk about living in an age where we don't judge. You hear this phrase a lot. I'm not judging, no judgment. But please tell me, you're being judged all the time, especially by the people that say that they don't have any judgment. I don't know about you, but I use judgment every day. And I'm especially using it when somebody hits the speaking platform. I'm deciding whether or not the person's educated. I'm deciding whether or not I like their outfit. I'm deciding whether or not they have something of value for me. I'm deciding whether or not they bathe. And that's just in the first 30 seconds. The judgment gets even deeper as they move into the program and start to, present evidence or documentation or facts about their content. And I'm weighing every one of them. Does that sound vaguely familiar to me? Does it sound something I could do? And all of these are little rabbit holes that a speaker can go down and never recover from in a 20-minute keynote.
Is there anything that you see people do in the beginning that they don't do in the end? So maybe they come on real strong and start off powerful and then slip away from it. Do you have any advice on how to maintain it through the whole presentation?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that every presentation should have a CTA or a call to action. So the whole reason you're there is some sort of call to action. Even if it's a safety program, the call to action is don't get hurt, right? If it's a sales program, buy my product. If it's a motivational program, go out and be the best person you can be. Try to be in a good mood every day. Be a good role model. So it's always about asking people to do something. So if the entire, as the French call it, the raison d'etre, right? The reason for the speech is the call to action, then all roads lead to the call to action. And I would be, if I'm crafty as a presenter, I would be planting seeds the entire way that would germinate in that 20-minute keynote and help you understand that the call to action is not only in your best interest, but it's undeniable. So you can imagine how many moving parts there are in a 20-minute keynote if my very thing that comes out of my mouth at the very beginning is already a harbinger of things to come in terms of the call to action. So it's not just my talking points. It's not just slides 1 through 12. It's not just my expression and how I'm communicating with you. It's all of it. And all roads lead to the call to action. It's a hefty proposition. Think of it like a piece of sushi. I don't know if you eat sushi, but
absolutely spicy tuna.
That's right. A piece of sushi is designed to have a bunch of different flavors that hit different areas of your mouth at different times. There's a part of your mouth that resonates with salt. There's another one for sugar, another one for temperature. The roof of your mouth feels the food differently than your tongue does. And of course, all the textures. And sushi is very, carefully crafted to deliver that taste payload, right? And I think a message, a speech is the same thing, whether it's a pop-up presentation in a group meeting, a 20-minute keynote, or a 3-hour workshop. It's all the same.
So what do you do when you get to the call to action? They've done the first and second part right so far. Now they're at the call to action, and this is a part you can either nail or completely screw everything up with also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How does one prepare to deliver a good call to action?
Well, I do a lot of sales training, and in the sales training, we talk about something called the trial close. Now, the trial closes are these like shallow versions of the call to action that precede the call to action. In a 30-minute sales call, I might do 2 or 3 trial closes. And the trial close is just to set up to make sure that my GPS is calibrated properly and that I've got your attention, that we're moving down the right path, and that you're with me. So trial closes sound like something like this. Does this make sense to you? They're always yes questions. Does this make sense to you? And I would actually nod my head yes. Now, people who don't speak that are watching our session today, this little interview, are thinking to themselves, this guy's crazy. That cornball stuff can't possibly work. But it works like a charm, especially in the hands of a good speaker or in the mouth of a good speaker. So the trial close, there's a million of them. And you can use different ones for different personalities. If you have a lot of women in the audience, a lot of empathic people who are emotionally based, you might say, how does this feel to you so far? But if you have a lot of cerebral people in the audience, engineers, for example, you might say, what do you think of this? Do you think this could work? So I keep using language and nonverbals that would appeal to the type of people I'm trying to message in that particular presentation. Podcasts are hard because we don't know exactly who's listening. But at the American Association of Engineers, I can promise you that we're looking at a bunch of cerebral folks who are linear thinkers, and they're looking for a lot of statistics and facts.
How do you find that information if you don't know it? I know you know it because you've been doing it a while, but for someone that's not as far along as you.
Yeah. What kind of information are you talking about?
As far as the audience, if someone's speaking to the Association of Contractors versus Engineers versus pottery artists,
yeah,
those are different demographics. How do you know how many personality types should you account for, and how do you find which one your audience is?
Well, I'm a big fan of Dr. Tony Alessandra. You probably know him. He's been talking about the platinum rule for a long time. Platinum rule is the antithesis of the golden rule. Tony works with only 4 personalities. The 4 personalities are, and these are in every audience, right? The relator, the thinker, the socializer, and the director. So a lot of the personality assessments will tell you that there are a lot more than 4, 16, 32. But for our purposes, when we're teaching presentation skills, it's just 4 types of people in the room usually. And once I understand who the 4 personalities are and how many I have in the room, I can calibrate and work my presentation almost in real time. So I might have a speech that I'm delivering, but I would recalibrate in real time for that particular audience. And I would do that by, again, in real time, adjust, say, the yin and the yang of what I'm presenting. Cerebral people in the room, thinkers in the room might be looking for a lot of statistics and factoids, whereas non-thinkers, sounds bad to say it like that, doesn't it? But people who are emotionally based are interested in stories. So I would use fewer bullet points, for example, and tell more stories. Now, I never abandon stories completely because stories are very impactful. And even with the most cerebral audience, a good story goes a long way. But it's that yin and the yang, you know? Numbers versus letters, stories versus bullet points, conversation versus a linear PowerPoint presentation. And all these are just micro decisions that I make in real time. Another thing I do is called the reverse presentation, where in a smaller group setting, I might get the other person to tell me his presentation before I deliver mine. And that's powerful. That's why every presentation should have a few of these, we call them icebreakers, but it should be purposeful, where I take a quick straw poll of the audience, how many people in the audience like to do this? Great, hands up. How many people recognize this? Thank you very much. And maybe a third one. And the third one's always the one that gets the biggest, response from the audience. So we do things in threes. The third one's always the best or the funniest or the most, interesting. And then after doing that initial survey, I have a litmus test of who exactly I'm dealing with in the audience. And then I can again calibrate my content moving forward. I told you earlier that it's best to be natural. So how can I be natural if I'm slave to the PowerPoint presentation? I have to move sequentially through these slides, which were preordained, right? And that's why I haven't used PowerPoint in 8 or 9 years now.
What do you think about, have you ever used just images?
Yes, I love that because I'm not slave to the bullet points and so on. I'm still slave to the sequence of the images, but maybe that's not a bad thing. My favorite PowerPoint tool, Mario, is B for black, because I can just make the screen go black and just start freeforming and work the crowd in a natural, authentic way. I came up through the music business, and we talk about two types of musicians: people who play orchestra or they play from a music, right? They read the music. So they're classically trained. They never leave the music. There's other people playing the same music. We're all following the conductor. That kind of musician versus a jazz musician. No music, just chord progression. And because he knows his horn and because he's free to improv, right? Improvisation. It's a much different style of music. It's freer. It's looser. Jazz has been more popular than classical music almost since it's been invented. And for that reason, it feels freer. It feels more natural. And so while I appreciate and can read music, I'm much more of a jazz improv artist on stage. And that is a hard thing to teach people to do, improv.
I'm very much the same way. I play sax and piano, so if it's the classical side, the piano's great, but the sax is a lot of fun.
You bet.
Can just do what you want. And same for speaking.
Sax in some ways is the more popular instrument. The saxophone almost always gets the solo, right? There's piano in every song, but you can hardly hear it sometimes. The sax is never hidden. It's always up front. The sax is the one that the piano has a note. You hit the note G, bing, bing. It's always the same. But with a saxophone, you can slide it up to the note. You can slide down to the note. You can bend the note. That's interesting to me.
So your style, I think, and maybe it's why I like it and I'm biased, but it gives you the freedom to interact with the audience and actually add the value to them instead of being – I remember some people, there was an issue with the PowerPoint projector and they just stopped everything till it was fixed. And I was like, dude, make something up, or really?
Yeah.
You know your material that little that you can't just say the next bullet point here?
Well, that's the thing, slave to the projector. There's a famous story about President Bill Clinton giving a very important speech, and the teleprompter shut down, and he continued on as if there was no teleprompter at all. And that's the mark of a really good communicator. We saw a similar fluidity from President Reagan. Not everybody has the ability to do this, but when they have it, man, you just appreciate it so much. It's like a gift. Now, it doesn't guarantee that all the factoids are going to be in place. That's when you start misquoting statistics and that sort of thing. But, let's face it, most of us know our material pretty well. Martin Luther King has been credited with delivering the I Have a Dream speech in front of the Washington Monument as if it was some sort of master work. But anybody that has studied the speech knows that he had given components of that speech for months and months and months in advance. It just happened to be the time it was recorded, and people like to date and name stuff, so it became the I Have a Dream speech on such and such a day, But components.
But it wasn't his first one.
What's that? It
wasn't his first one.
Well, it wasn't the first time he had delivered various components of that. He knew he had all of these doubles and triples and home runs, but finally they coalesced on this particular day. And now it's the I Have a Dream speech. And calling it the I Have a Dream speech has a much more power and gravitas than just saying Martin Luther King was a hell of a speaker. But make no mistake, all of those components came from a body of work, right? And I'll bet he gave a version of the I Have a Dream speech after that too. But nobody talked about it after that because it served everybody to have it be a masterwork, a command performance on that particular day. But all of us, you have your bits. I work like a comedian in bits. And when I tell a joke to an audience, if I'm keynoting on Saturday night, I'm going to tell that joke as if I'm telling it for the very first time. And I'm going to enjoy the hell out of it. And when you go see REO Speedwagon play on Saturday, they're going to play roll with the changes as if they're playing it for the very first time for you. But it's part of their body of work. It's going to be a little bit different each night. The mix is different every night. But if you go see, if you become a groupie for REO Speedwagon, if you do, God help you. But if you go see them on a number of occasions, you'll see that it's basically the same every single night because it's got a delivery system now, just like all good speeches. Most presenters don't get nearly enough practice. Don't you agree?
For sure. There's so many people that go out one or two times and, now they're a speaker. It's like I personally think you got to go out dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, screw up enough to know what works, what doesn't, test it out. I tell my authors and entrepreneurs the same thing when I'm helping them with their business. It's like, what's the best way to do this? Here's what I found has a high level of success, but your audience is vastly different. This is going to get you about 80, 90%, but you got to test this out.
Yeah.
Ask your audience, get some feedback and refine it. Now, what a lot of people think is it's going to take forever if I do all that work. No, you do it quick, one day at a time, not a month at a time.
100%. And the people that go up 3 or 4 times, they get just about to the place where they might be learning from their own presentations, and then they change the presentation. They swap it out, or they get bored, or they want to do another title, another topic. This is one of the digs that Seinfeld has about a lot of comedians. He says they don't take the time to truly cultivate their material. Like most presenters should have what's called a signature story, should have several. And it only becomes a signature story after you tell it about 500 times. It's not a signature story because you told it 5 times. And what happens in those 500 times? You tell it using different lengths. A good signature story doesn't have to be any longer than 2 minutes. So try it at 2:15. Try to get it down to 1 minute and 3/4. What happens when you use a certain introduction for it? What happens when you accentuate certain words during the signature story or do a gesture on a certain word? What happens when you pause between certain words? Again, now all those flavors of the sushi being adjusted until it tastes perfect. And then that's the story you tell when you go on NPR.
Well, you're giving a lot of great expert authority insights, and I appreciate that. Tell me, what is your biggest transformation story from one of your students that you've helped refine and go through this process?
I think most of my students have trouble with mindset. It's not about speaking at all. In the 6-week Present Like a Pro course online, we spend the first week just on mindset. This idea that, you have to think about yourself differently. Most presenters that are doing it for money are way underpriced. They could be making a shit ton more money than they are. Not that money's the whole reason for doing it. But if you're going to buy an airplane ticket and get on a plane and fly someplace for $1,000 and you could be doing it for $2,000, why don't you move into that area, So not just the value of the speech, but also the content of the speech. What you're capable of doing in a 20-minute presentation is far greater than what you're exercising currently, is my experience. And so I just try to get into their head and try to help them understand that they're just at the tip of the iceberg in terms of how many people they're helping, the quantity and quality of help of care that they're providing for people, if they're in sales or education or whatever, and then try to get them to understand what's possible. I think that's a big, big thing that most speakers need to address early on.
How many people would
By
you
the way-
say,
by
where
the
are they
way-
at when,
By the
Go
way,
ahead.
transformational, not informational, right? When people call me, they say, well, I just need a couple of tips. And I say, well, I don't do tips. If you want tips, just Google it, man. I thought you were serious. And then they're like, whoa. I thought you told me you only had one speaking engagement each month for the last 6 months. If I give you tips, you're only going to have one gig next month and the month after that. So I asked them, do you want information or do you want transformation? And almost everybody wants transformation. And then we go to work. So again, that's mindset, right? Getting straight on exactly where you are and exactly where you want to be.
would you say most of them are at 40, 50, 60%, or they're at 70, 80? Do they need just a few tweaks with the mindset, or is it like a complete 180?
Yeah, I haven't met anybody yet that couldn't improve. I don't know if you can talk about this mathematically, but improve 80%. They're to say it this way, they're at 20% of what they're capable of. And I'm not talking about, 4 years of college education. I'm not talking about getting a degree. I'm not talking about spending thousands and thousands of dollars on gear and lessons. I'm just talking about pivoting in a couple of key areas in the mindset and the shortcuts that I show them. That's the magic right there. When we get all of that stuff in a crock pot, it starts to smell pretty good pretty quickly.
I agree. It's delicious.
Yeah.
So I got to ask you before we go to our imperfect action round, who is an entrepreneur you'd love to have dinner with after you've been speaking on stage with them?
An entrepreneur that I'd love to have dinner with after sharing the platform. So this is somebody that's in the speaking business, somebody maybe that I've seen present.
Yes, you just maybe don't know them yet, maybe haven't spoke with them, but it's not just a hi, nice to meet you. You actually get to hang out afterwards.
Okay. Well, he's top of mind right now. I don't know that I have a lot of time to come up with the answer for this, and I'm not even in the action round yet. But I know that Aaron Sorkin, the prolific writer, director, creator of West Wing, is doing a masterclass now online. And I watch West Wing once in a while to get inspired because it's such a well-crafted show, the writing and the speaking and the delivery. There's a lot of presentation tricks used on the show. I think he'd be a fun cat to have dinner with.
I do like him, and I did see there's a lot of great people in the masterclass. That's a good reference there.
Yeah. What are they charging for that? Is it a varied price for everybody? Do you know?
It's usually between $100 or $200, depending on the time of year. There's sometimes a buy one get one, or buy one get one. Not buy one get one, but get the full year for the price of one. It just depends when you're looking at it. But there's just like every business. There's today only until next week, and we change the name of the sale, and it's something different.
Yeah. Well,
Black Friday only, then the sale goes off for Sunday, and then Cyber Monday. Well, same deal. So
I think about master classes and online learning and live presentations and even song lyrics. I just tweeted a song lyric from Barry Manilow of all people. I learned from everybody. I've learned from you in our little pre-roll. I was learning about production values and I'm learning interview style from you right now. You're asking fantastic questions, and unlike a lot of people who interview, your questions are actually shorter than the answers. How refreshing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. The
Barry Manilow lyric is from a song I just heard on the radio the other day, and I was riding in the car with Renee, and I'm a patsy for all that soft rock stuff, especially if it's got a meaningful lyric. The song was "I Made It Through the Rain," and at this stage in my life, as a teacher now, as a mentor for some people who are coming up, the lyric was, I made it through the rain and found myself respected by the others who got rained on too and made it through. And I I almost had to pull the car over. I wanted to play the song again later by myself and really listen to it. So I love meter. I love pentameter. I love words and how they fit together. I love words and I love the word combinations. And I'm just delighted to share it with your audience today. Thank you for asking.
Well, I'm glad you're sharing it because I think there's a lot of people who enjoy music and they just think it's, oh, I'd love to go to their concert. I'd love to hear their CD. And, for example, with authors, it's, oh, I love reading their book. It's like, why read a book when you can write one? Why listen to a song when you can play one? And why do you think you can't have your own concert or event? Yeah. My biggest issue is when I'm at these things, I'm sitting here like, where do I walk up on stage at? Because it's like, I'm used to it. The marching field, the stage for speaking, the orchestra shell hall, whatever you want to call it. And the feeling. But you've been on both sides of it and you like one more than the other, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're making a great point. It's not just a book. It's not just a song. It's not just a concert. It's not just a keynote speech. It's communication. It's meaning. It's education. It's transformation, right? If you want it to be. But if you just think you're hammering together a PowerPoint presentation so you can fill a 20-minute slot tomorrow, you got the wrong idea, I think.
I agree. I mean, if someone's asking for the tips and tricks and you say Google it, it's like, what should I put in my presentation? Just grab something from SlideShare and put your name on it. Like, well, isn't that what if you don't care, that's all it's going to be.
Isn't that what we're seeing in presentation after presentation? As we're seeing jokes that we'll email to everybody. We're seeing they'll pull up a slide of a meme that I've been looking at for 2 years now. Somebody the other day said, "Have you seen the such and such video?" And the way they presented it to me, it was like this very unique thing, and I couldn't wait to go see it because it sounded like it was fresh and new. And I pulled it up, and it was, oh my gosh, the slowest moving thing. It was filled with pablum, not an original bit of information in it. The title, I think, was unique, but it's incumbent upon us. I mean, somebody got to be the standard bearer. I gesture to myself when I say that, but you too, everybody that's listening to this, be a standard bearer, be original, create your own content. Don't just put forth stuff that you've heard from other people. And if you do put stuff forward from other people, at least provide attribution. Mario, I'd like to have a $1 for everybody that tells me, I'd like to start with the why. I'm like, that's Simon Sinek. Are you sure you don't want to mention his name when you tell me you're starting with the why? That's his stuff you're teaching. So we got a lot to learn and a lot to change as we elevate the industry.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think a little bit of that fear goes in there. Like I asked, how did you just quit your job like that? There's that fear of like, what if, I think there's nothing worse than looking back 60 years later going, I probably should have. And I remember I was speaking on my birthday because I love serving people and, speaking, and I love what I do. I was speaking on my birthday and I was talking on the phone, getting ready and everything. And it was when the Harlem Shake was out, a couple of years ago. And I was like, oh my gosh, it'd be so cool if I could get the room to, and I was like, I'm the speaker. I can do what I want. And even if I can't, it's my birthday. So I could pull that card. So on the drive over, I was like, how do I pull this off? And I got the whole audience doing it.
Oh, good for you.
And that was not part of the speech. I assure you that going into it.
And that's interesting too, because so much of what we're doing is being recorded now. It wasn't the case when I got into the business, but now any clown can throw up an iPhone and record what's happening. So you better be good. It's like whatever you do is forever on the internet. So let's up our game. Let's get with it. We're all going.
Put your best foot forward. I've been telling people that since wrote my book on video marketing, and especially since I started the show, I go, I've treated this since before day one. I do the same prep as if I'm speaking to 1,000 people.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like I don't roll up in pajamas and slippers and, you know, just like, oh, hey, I'm here. And it's astonishing to me because if you were speaking to 1,000 or 10,000 people, everyone would be buttoned up, preparing the week before, this, all kinds of stuff. But when it comes down to, oh, it's just online, it's like, yeah, there's actually more people watching you here than are in that room, and
100%.
It's going to live forever.
100%.
When the elections were going on, you know, there was 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people in an auditorium. Even if you have a large, you know, like in downtown Detroit, Little Caesar Center, 20,000 people, let's say it's a concert, you max it out. There can still be 50, 100,000 watching online, if not more. So I was somewhat going, maybe I should have a course on, you know, forget the stage. Here's your real stage. Why, you know, flip it around and reverse it? Because, you know, I have videos from 10 years ago when we met, and they're still out there and they're still getting views and people are still seeing it.
For sure.
So we're going to thank our sponsor. We're going to go to the imperfect action round, and I'll bring you right back up.
Great.
Don't stay stuck in startup mode. That's what I tell my audiences and clients, and why I advise using Pipedrive for all of your customer relationship marketing needs in your business. You want more leads, you want more deals, and ultimately more clients. Who doesn't? But when I deliver you 100 more deals a quarter, can you handle it? A month? A week? A day? Which one of those made you the most nervous? Saying you want it over and over like a record on repeat is one thing. The reality, however, is that your subconscious is stopping you at some point, and it's because you want A, but your business is set up for B. Whether you have a system or you are that system, Pipedrive will upgrade your deal closing experience, increase your profitability, and make your day-to-day more enjoyable. Get your free trial today at eainterviews.com/Pipedrive. Don't waste another day being this system or using a subpar system to grow your empire. There's no need to make it harder than it already is. Once again, that's eainterviews.com/Pipedrive. And we are back with the imperfect action round. Michael, are you ready to take imperfect action?
I'm not sure, actually.
Well, you've been doing this long enough. And you're great at the improv. It's not a big deal, but I created this because for years I've taken my authors and entrepreneurs when we're working one-on-one, and they're like, you know, everyone has that head trash and that fear, and I always say you got to take imperfect action.
Yeah, done is better than perfect.
And that's when I was designing the show flow. I go, you know what? I want something that, whether you listen to the beginning, middle, the end, I wanted it action filled with stuff you can implement right now today. And so I came up with these questions. And the first one is, what is the fastest path to the cash?
The bank.
For starting a new business, you would just go to the bank and get money out of it?
Oh, you mean to generate money? Okay.
Yes.
So
what is the fastest path to generate the cash?
I think online coaching.
Okay. Why is that?
Well, because you can, if you work quickly, you can actually promote and enroll clients before the course is even finished. If you're going to wait for a keynote by comparison, and it's an annual conference, you have to wait for all 12 months of the calendar to come around, and then hope that they need a keynote speaker at the exact time you call. But if you got an online program, you put it out there. You could even promote it on Facebook without a website. Say, I've got starting a new online program. Message me if you're interested. I mean, that's pretty fast money, don't you think?
I would agree 100%. And that kind of touches on what I was just saying about you have the world at your fingertips now with the internet. So let's talk the profit difference. One keynote speech is worth, how much would you say?
Well, people are at different levels, of course, but if you're speaking on national associations and you're not a household name, it would be fairly easy to get 10K if you've got some game.
So 10K one time a year. And I know there's other events and this, that, the other thing, but for sake of apples to apples, you got 10 grand one time, which isn't bad.
Yeah.
I know the answer. What do you believe you can do with an online course that you're not limited to one time a year?
Yeah, it depends on if it's when you say course, is it 3 classes? Is it 6 weeks? Is it half of a year? Is it ongoing, like a retainer scenario? But you could easily get, I would think, $1,000 for 3 sessions. And if you're going to keep them for a while, you could get thousands of dollars. I always try to provide 3 times more value than what they're paying, and I try to help them pay for the course before the course is finished. And if not the entire course, at least part of it. When I'm looking at my own business, Mario, I'm looking at 4 types of money: big money, small money, fast money, and slow money. So if I've got a book that I'm selling for $20, it's fast money, but it's small money. The keynote, which is 10K, could be 10K, is big money, but it's slow money because I have to wait for that, conference to come around. And so if you're in the business of speaking for money, you want to think about those 4 different types of money.
That's a great point, and it goes into, well, actually the third question, but the second question is, what is the biggest problem you see your prospects making and the fastest way they can fix it?
Underestimating themselves, and by getting their head straight on what they're capable of, they very quickly move into action mode. When you're plagued by self-doubt or thinking that you're not good enough, or your presentations are not ready for prime time, just forestalls everything. You go into arrested development, and that's deadly. I mean, some people never come out of it. If your presentation's not ready this year, what makes you think it's going to be ready next year? Well, it won't be. So, here we are getting ready to turn the calendar year, and I'm just telling people this next year doesn't have to be the same, man. It can be so much better.
That's awesome. And it should be every year as far as I'm concerned. Number 3, what is the best way to maximize customer lifetime value?
Customer lifetime value. So you're talking about repeat customers and keeping people with you and all that sort of thing?
Yes.
I think it's delivering on your promises and doing what you say you're going to do. I've been taken by so many people, especially marketing people, who promise me the moon, and I pay them $1 gajillion and it just never materializes. And they have all kinds of excuses for this. They're not bad people. Some of them oversold me. Some of them overestimated their own abilities. In some cases, I was even at fault, to be fair. But I think you have to deliver undeniable value, and you have to get them to tell you that it was undeniable value. It's not just you going to bed every night saying, "Yeah, I did pretty good today, didn't I?" You have to get your customers, even your unhappy customers, to tell you that you did everything that you could and more. That's something. And
I heard that the litmus test isn't what you can say about you, but what others can say about you.
Yeah, for 100%. And it's not just your high flying, happy customers. It's the people that failed, who then say to you, "You know what? You did everything you said you were going to do for me and more. It's on me that this didn't work." That's how you know you have a killer program. And these are the people that will come back and they'll buy anything that you put together within reason. They'll buy your books. They'll give you referrals for keynotes. They'll hire you for keynotes. They'll sign up for your online program. They'll be customers for life. What's that old book, Customers for Life by Caruso? It's a great concept.
You must have looked at the question, because I was just about to ask you what's a good book that's made a big difference in your life that you could recommend.
Well, there you go.
Do you have any others?
A book for what?
Do you have any others in addition to that?
For speaking or just general success?
In general, books that you have made an impact on your business.
I like all of the Malcolm Gladwell books, but not for the reason you might think. Although I like watching Malcolm Gladwell on video, he's not known as a particularly, well, I'm sure he's getting good coin for his speaking engagements, but I like him as a storyteller. And so if you read his most recent book, which is Talking to Strangers or Tipping Point, or David and Goliath. Just see how he really gets into the nap of the fabric of a story. And he comes from investigative journalism, so he really understands how to turn the dirt over, as I say. So the gardening analogy is if you're going to get rid of the weeds in your garden and you go out with a spade to dig the dirt up, you just can't turn it over one time because the weeds are still showing up. They just grow sideways now, right? And on angles. You have to turn that same dirt over again and chop it up. You turn it over again, you turn the spade the other way, you chop it up another way. It's like slicing and dicing every square foot of earth in the garden. That's how you work a garden. And when you do that, the oxygen comes into the garden and different organic things start to happen. The chemistry of the garden starts to cook a little bit. But most people don't care to work the garden like that. And that's what you have to do to cultivate a good presentation.
It's reminding me of that Henry Ford quote where it's like all the success you're looking for is disguised as work.
Yeah, that's right.
And if that's not him, someone please correct me and we'll update the show notes on EA interviews.
No, it's like that. It's something like most people don't like to work because it's dressed in overalls.
Yeah.
Something like this.
But there's a lot of people wearing those nowadays.
Yeah, right. I read a great quote this morning that happiness for most people is not doing anything. You know, it's just sitting around, and that's not that you're never going to get better like that. You might be happy, but you're just sitting around. You know, you're not helping anybody. You're not crafting something. You're not improving your presentations. So I find happiness. Everybody's different, but I find happiness in getting better at what I'm doing. I find happiness in helping people. And maybe that's just where I am at this stage in life. But if we're kindred spirits, that's good. Let's go have a beer.
I agree. Just not doing something you want that can help others that you want to pursue. Definitely more joy than just sitting around. And I'm going to challenge one thing about this because I'm curious what you think before we go to the last question. Do you think a lot of people say, I'd love to just sit around because when you say what would make you happy? Oh, I'd love to just relax and sit around. Do you think that's because the only lens they have of seeing stuff is through constant work and the antithesis of that is doing nothing? So that correlates as happiness to them because they haven't dreamed in a while? Because I actually was thinking like there's so many cool things you could do.
Yeah.
100 years isn't enough to do them all in.
I think leisure, happiness for a long time has been equated with leisure, you know? So I think this idea of just watching 3 football games in a row on Sunday somehow became a guy's version of happiness. It's never been my version of happiness. I like football. I just can't do 6 hours of it, 10 hours of it a day. Somebody asked, I've always marveled at Paul McCartney's output, and think about him as an artist. He's written children's books. He had a pretty good career with the Beatles. He had a magnificent solo career afterward. He's done work with the Firemen and other kind of music. And somebody asked him one time, you know, how do you get so much done? And he said, well, I don't watch TV. And he spoke more about that. He said, I'm always way behind in all of the series and all of the, you know, hot shows. He said, I just started watching The Sopranos, which has gone off the air like 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And so it's a decision. Every day it's a decision. How do you want to spend your time? Just like when you're crafting a presentation, how do you want to spend your time? You want to spend your time getting the fonts right on the PowerPoint? Or do you, and you know, matching the color wheel, the color palette for the theme of that conference? Or do you want to get really good at telling one story?
Hit that B for black and just throw something in there.
Yeah.
No, I that's a really great point, joking aside, because there's so many things where it's like the perfectionitis will kill you. We'll take my show, I can crank out 20, 30 more episodes. When I was getting this off the ground, there was 6 weeks where I did maybe half of one And actually, you know who it is. And I was just like so beyond frustrated. I'm like, I've been doing this, video production professionally since 2005. What the heck is going on here? And I'm just thinking of all the people I can reach and the cool guest and all kinds of stuff. And the second I got it working, I was like, all right, let's go with this. And I was flying.
Yeah.
And, it's that whole failure success thing. But at the same point, it's like, no, I didn't want to take that much time dealing with the buttons and, the font, if you will.
Yeah.
But I also was like, I don't want to have it on an elementary level for the next 5 years. So it's like, how do you judge? What do you do? What's the highest and best use of your time? And it's like, sometimes you just figure it out as you go, make it up, do that improv, if you will.
And sometimes the market will tell you, your quality needs to be better, or you need to be faster, or you're not making any money because nobody's seeing your stuff yet.
Yeah, or maybe nothing's wrong and it's all in your head. Just keep going.
Touché.
Well, I have appreciated everything you've shared so far. And where can people learn more about you? Because I know you have a whole lot more to share.
Well, the website's easy. It's my name, michaelangelocaruso.com. We've got a blog there that's helpful. I also have a YouTube channel that's doing pretty well. So you can, and a lot of people don't know this about YouTube or don't think about it. Of course, you would go to my channel to find all my stuff. But if you were looking for a particular help on a particular issue, like say humor or sales or leadership, then just type 4 keywords into the YouTube search panel. Angelo Caruso sales, Angelo Caruso funny. And then all of those associated videos will come up. You can quickly see which ones are 2 minutes, which ones are 10 minutes, and fit it to your time frame. So it's a pretty cool place to go.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate you for sharing with us, and I hope you have a great night.
Mario, thanks. Thank you very much, and thanks for all the good work that you do in helping people.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. All right, Expert Authority World, we have another great episode here. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day, and God bless. How can you know where you're going if you don't know where you're at? Pipedrive CRM makes your business easier, more enjoyable, and more profitable by allowing you to easily organize your deals and move them through your pipeline, whether you're in the office or on the go. Get your free trial today at eainterviews.com/pipedrive. Stop wasting your time continually looking for your information when you can be investing it, adding more value to your prospects and clients. Once again, that's eainterviews.com/pipedrive. Hey, thanks for listening to today's episode. I hope you got a lot out of it. I know I sure did. If you haven't done so already, I invite you to subscribe to the show. And also be sure to check out eainterviews.com for complete show notes, the full interview video experience, links to the resources we mentioned, and more. Have a blessed day, and I'll see you tomorrow.